Trigger warning. Again, trigger warning. Viewer discretion is advised. In this episode, we will be talking about rape, pedophilia, and bestiality. If any of these topics disturb you, now is the time to turn off this episode. If you are okay, let's get into it.
Well, normally there's an introduction to this episode, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't create one. I was relying on Aya to do it. Aya was relying on me, so there's no introduction today.
Well, in my defense, I don't know what's going on.
You're muted.
You can still hear me, right?
I think you're probably too close.
I love you. So, hi my loves, welcome to our episode. What are you drinking?
I thought I'll switch it up a bit. Okay, whatever. I'm lying. I am drinking this no tasting having tea that is good for me, and that's the main goal that's here. What are you drinking over there? You better say something. I don't even care if you make it up. Say water or something, dang it. Don't say you have nothing.
I'm drinking water.
You drink water? Okay, so on today's episode, I was doing my own little kind of research again, right? And I kind of forgot about continuing the research. So there's a lot of things that's going to be going off my memory, and I'm going to be jumping back and forth because that's just who I am if I don't have it written down. Right. Aya, on the other hand, is not aware. She literally just found out what we were talking about maybe 5-10 minutes, starting to record this episode.
Yeah, but you didn't really get into detail. You just was like, This is what it's about. Do I put an intro? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right, and that's the come. We're introless, guys, okay? You're just gonna have to just wing it and trust us and, pray for the best. Mm-hmm. But so who are we talking about today? Today I'm gonna botch his name, and not on purpose. His name is Jared Fogle. He is the Subway guy, and I think a lot of people have seen him growing up. Like, he's the one that promotes healthy eating and stuff like that through Subway. So I'm gonna give like backstory, forward story, just try to keep up with me, okay? So before Jared became the Subway guy, he always grew up like a lonely individual. He basically, based off of what I saw, he was practically raising himself because, he had the mom who always worked, and being that she would work late and things like that, he always had access to just junk food. She always made sure that the house was stocked with food, but it was never the healthy things. Chips, juice, soda, like whatever it is that can feed him and keep him feeling fed while she was gone, because he was not cooking for himself and she didn't pre-make his dinner meals and stuff before going to work. Okay. So as you can imagine, with a diet like that, and it's something every single day, he started to gain a lot of weight, and there was bullying and all that stuff that did take on in his life. So he also ran to food as his comfort, because he didn't have mom at home. It was just him after school, so he would just get lost in playing video games and eating junk food, to the point where he could, back in the days, they had 3-liter sodas. They don't have that nowadays, but he could finish 2 3-liter sodas in one day. He can go through several bags of party-sized potato chips and all that stuff before going to bed. So by the time he ended up hitting college, this man was already within the 400 pounds. And he was in college. He did manage to have friends, because in college they're not so as immature.
Right.
I'm saying, so it was of a better setting for him. But what ended up happening was that his weight started to decline on him. He started having like high blood pressure, showing early signs of diabetes, but wasn't diagnosed with diabetes just yet. But it was showing that he was heading towards that direction if he continued with that. He was also diagnosed with sleep apnea. And I don't know if you or anyone that's listening to us is aware with what sleep apnea is, but basically you can't sleep for long periods of time because something in your body stops working, whether it's your heart or it's your lungs. Your body won't allow you to go into a deep sleep because it's trying to make sure that you stay alive. And being 400 pounds, putting all that weight on your heart and all that stuff, It was difficult for him. So he was not getting the type of sleep that he needed. And then throughout the daytime, even though he was tired, he couldn't sleep because he was going to school and trying to hang out with his friends. And, being overweight, it was a little more difficult on him because it demanded more from his body to try to be able to keep up with the friends. So he's already tired. And then on top of trying to be mobile, because in college he was a little more mobile, he was just losing the energy that he did have without being able to basically refuel himself. So one day he's driving home after school and gets into a car accident. He hits somebody because he fell asleep behind the wheel. While he's driving, he hit someone. Okay. And at that moment is when he decided, like, I have to do something before, God forbid, I kill someone behind the wheel. So he didn't murder anybody, or accidentally killed them or whatever, but he did hurt someone. They did get injured. And this was like when he had this whole epiphany in his life, and he decided to change everything. And he started off with his diet. And what he did was that not so far from where he lived, I think it was maybe about 2 blocks away, he would start walking from his house to Subway. And every day he would have himself he would have 2 6-inch sandwiches. But it was at 2 separate times throughout the day. I'm going to just make it up. He had 6-inch for breakfast, and then he had 6-inch for dinner, but that would be all that he ate. And then he would just keep himself hydrated throughout the rest of the day. And, walking to Subway and walking to Subway. And then he would do that twice a day, which basically is 4 times. He got to walk to the Subway and then walk from Subway back to his house to eat. And then he's walking around campus. So he became more mobile. And he was putting less calories into his body, where he was being able to lose drastic weight. If I'm not mistaken, I think he had managed to go down to 180 pounds from 400 and something. A lot of dietitians, I have to put this out there, do not, recommend his dieting status because it wasn't healthy. He didn't replace it with vegetables. If he did, it was like whatever vegetables was on the sandwich. So he wasn't getting the proper nutrition that the body needed.
Right.
But, he was being mindful with how he ate and the portions that he did give himself. But he was under a low deficit diet, which put him underneath the calories that he actually needed for his weight, his height, and his age. So throwing that out there. But he did manage to lose weight. The word got around campus. The newspaper editor from campus put out an article about him, which then caught the eye of the actual CEO of Subway. And being that he gave or glorification to Subway, they was like, hey, who better than to have an average Joe, you know what I'm saying, go and be the sponsor for our, healthy eating. And that's where that slogan of Eat Fresh came from. Because they were trying to say, like, you're eating fresh vegetables, you're eating fresh this, like, it's healthier than the pre-made burgers from McDonald's and all that other extra good stuff.
Right.
So they used him because, again, he was just an average college individual or whatever the case is. And with his fame, came fortunes and stuff like that. And he did finish college. He started going around different places and, being like a motivational speaker, motivating people about their weight and how not to be a bully and things like that. He started his own fundraiser. But the thing is that he never asked for money to be given to him directly. Every time he was showing up at events and people were like, oh, who do we make it out to? He would basically tell them, oh, I'm here just to educate people. Put it into my fundraiser because what we want to do is we want to like send kids to fat camp or, send them to like nutrition classes, trying to do like the whole healthy route. And he would tell them, put the money in my fundraising account so that we could be able to help other people who can't help themselves. So, people were like more than willing, like, oh, great. And sometimes they would even give more because they saw the good cause. At the end of the day, he never did anything with the money but put it in his pocket. So allegedly he was basically just doing it to avoid from being taxed from the checks, being, when you cash it and stuff like that. It's something like the allegation of what's going on with the Kardashians, with the whole quote unquote church that they have. People donate to their church, they donate to their church and things like that. But in reality, they think it's also because they're trying to avoid from being taxed. But that's a whole other story and not my story to tell.
Right.
At least not now.
I
At least not
I don't know
now.
nothing about that one either, but
Yeah, so that's one of the things. So basically, like, he was basically stealing money. He's over here like, oh yeah, it's to help kids and all this other extra stuff, and that wasn't the case. Then he ended up being married twice so far his whole entire life, because he's still alive, he's still up and going and everything like that. So far he's only been married 2 times. The first one ended up leaving because the money got to his head and he started to financially abuse his wife. So if she denied him sex and all this other extra stuff, and then she wanted money, he was like, no, I'm not giving you no money. He was also verbally and mentally abusive towards her, where he would be like, you're so stupid. How could I marry somebody like you? And he would do things like that. So she ended up leaving because she was like, she just couldn't take it anymore. He would embarrass her in restaurants when they would go out to eat. And if not, like, he'll take her to fancy restaurants and hope that she won't make a scene, and he'll be making this up. He'll be on some like, I cheated on you, and expect her to just be content because they were something, they were somewhere fancy. Because he was trying to manipulate the situation and be able to have that control. But then it started getting even worse, where he started to he started verbally threatening her about taking the abuse physical. So before it even got there, but the fact that he was already spewing it out, she was like, okay, it's time for me to go. I'm out. Bye. So right. She ended up leaving. Okay, boom, whatever, no problem. She saved herself from a lot of crap. Second wife comes into play. As second wife comes into play, she's already got with him as the famous person. So she's already used to him and the persona that he already has. As for the first wife, she got with him before the fame, so he started to change on her.
Okay.
So this one, it's already seeing him how he is. She likes him. He's flirtatious. He cheats, and she accepts it because she's just like, you know what? Like, he's a famous guy. It's gonna happen. This is normal. But he was addicted to sex, and he was also a serial cheater. So he was cheating on her multiple times, and that's when it became a problem, because it wasn't like he had like one girlfriend a year. He was spent close to 72,000, not 7,200, 72,000 a year on hookers and prostitutes. Okay.
What?
Yeah. So, and that was just with them. That's not including girlfriends that he had in different states that he would visit them, like when he was doing like a tour. And then the money that he was spent for hotels and things like that while he was with them. So just imagine the amount of money that he was just putting out there. Okay. And then things started to take a turn even deeper than just that. And this is where the trigger warning and everything comes into play. He ended up trying to find somebody that could be able to help him, because he was starting to get the attention of the government and the amount of money that he was spending and stuff like that. And he ended up getting himself his own personal assistant. I really don't remember the guy's name. I wish I would have written it down. But this guy did everything and anything that Jared asked of him to do. There was literally no task too big, no task too small. Whatever the guy asked for, this assistant delivered. And it became...
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it became very twisted. They were both into the same thing, but backstory on the assistant, because hopefully it gives a little better understanding as to why this assistant was the way he was with Jared. Okay? So we're going to reverse it. Whatever. So when he was younger, this boy was raped. This boy was molested several times by different people. Like, he was the one that all the people went to rape because they knew like he was an easy target, and he didn't have family that protected him. So he was raped multiple times by different individuals. It wasn't like the same person. Okay. Wow. He was molested, and mentally his age doesn't match his mental state.
Okay, so he had mental issues. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what, so I don't want to give it a title. Okay. But his age and his brain were not seeing eye to eye. Okay, so they don't match. He's been mentally abused, physically abused, sexually abused in all different kinds of ways, because it was also males that did this. Males and females. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it started like around the age of 5 and continued until like the age of 17. And the main person that used to rape him, bully him, and molest him, the only reason it stopped was because that boy was murdered.
Wow.
So this was going on for years, and I believe it was his neighbor.
Oh, wow.
Right. Okay, so just I want to say that it's not excusing the actions, but the age doesn't match the mentality, and then all this other abuse that was taken on. So when Jared hired him, it became a different dynamic in his life. Like growing up and dealing with everything that he dealt with, to now he's on tour buses and he's taking pictures with people who are like fans of Jared and asking for his autograph because he's the assistant. So it's like, oh my God, like, you know Jared? You know what I'm saying? So his life switched. So he was so grateful. He was just so appreciative, where it's just like, oh my God, like, I thank you. You're my knight in shiny armor and all this stuff. And then remember what I said, how Jared was with his first wife.
Right.
He controlled her. He manipulated her. Jared was doing the same thing with his assistant. Where if Jared was on some, let's just pretend, oh, it's 3 a.m. and he felt like he wanted coffee and he did not want to get up, he would call his assistant from his assistant's home and be on some like, hey, I'm in the mood for coffee. This man would get dressed, go either to his house and make him coffee in his own coffee machine that Jared would have, or he would go and find the coffee shop that was open and then bring it to him at that time. No questions asked. Like, he was so indebted to this man because his life has changed due to how Jared was. Okay. So that's how wrapped around the finger Jared had him. And then there was this one time, I forgot exactly what the settings was. I believe that it was in his house, in his office. He had invited some kids over to his house because supposedly, you know, this whole mentorship that he had going on. And Jared had cameras in his office. And I forgot why he put the cameras. I think he was saying like somebody was like forging checks or whatever. So he wanted to find out who was forging the checks. So he had put several cameras of different angles in his office facing his table. So after he goes and he has these kids and all that stuff, they end up leaving, and then he starts checking the cameras and he sees that in the camera, it actually recorded 2 teenagers having intercourse in his office. And what ended up happening was, instead of Jared like being disgusted and wanting to get rid of it and be like, throw this out, I don't want this, he came and told his assistant like, hey, erase everything on that tape but that section of them having the intercourse. And then he was like, put it on a separate flash drive and, you know, save it for me, give it to me, but erase everything else. And the man did exactly what he was told.
Okay.
And basically it went from there, and that's just how everything started. And by everything, there's a lot. I don't know everything a lot. So everybody, you know, is going to have to do their own research, because again, I didn't write down everything. But you're going to just get the gist of what's taking place. So that's where everything started. And he started hosting, you know, these mentorships even more, and started putting cameras in the bathrooms and started putting cameras in, you know, the extra spare room. So whenever he had any kind of guest staying over, he would be able to have those videos. And then it grew into more. It grew so much to the point where he started flying out to the Philippines and started paying for sex to have with boys. And the reason we know this is because he started having a relationship with a radio host, and he started to confide in her because she made it seem like she was okay with it. But she was a newspaper person, but instead it was radio, reporter. There you go. Okay. She was a reporter, so she was doing this and recording their conversations because, again, she was in a relationship with him. But he started getting so comfortable in this relationship that he had with her, where he started just informing her of all his deep, dark secrets. And because she gave him so much comfort in it, like, she didn't judge him or didn't make him feel as though he was being judged. He started letting out so much things. But on top of that, his wife, his second wife, who ended up divorcing him later on, throughout while being married to him, kept going to the police and telling the police that she found things that put him down as a pedophile, and they would ignore everything. Because they were saying that if she was married to him, that she had to be a part of that too. And they were looking at her like she was just like a vengeful wife trying to get her husband in trouble. And I'm just like, don't you think that's a little stretching, you know?
Yeah.
But people are who they are, so whatever. But this lady, she goes and she's having these conversations with Jared, and he starts to inform her on everything, and he's the one that told her. And you know, in the conversation that she recorded was shown in the documentary. Well, it was played in the documentary that I was able to watch. And he starts talking about how he will go to the Philippines and he will buy or rent these little boys. And she's just like, oh wow, do you have a preferred age? Right? And he's just like, the younger the better, because the tighter they are. Okay.
What?
Yes. And he has no issues with them being younger. And he starts talking about one of the experiences of, you know, one of the boys crying out for help and things like that, and that it gave him more of a rush.
That's horrid.
Right. Again, it's not funny. I'm not laughing. I'm just, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I guess it's like a nervous laugh or something. But he would go to the Philippines and he would do that. He would go to other places as well. But the Philippines is the only place that I'm remembering right now. And he would go multiple times throughout the year, and it would be him and his assistant. And his assistant would take part in it as well. But it was more so that Jared would have him do it to sort of have blackmail on him. So in case the guy ever decides to turn on him, he had, you know, evidence that they were both going to go down together. And then he would start financially abusing his assistant and won't be paying him if he denied to do anything. And then it became, they said, a BDSM sort of relationship, only due to the way the roles were done, where the assistant was now a submissive and Jared became the dominant. And he would tell the assistant that he can no longer call him Jared, or he can never call him like Fogle. I think that's his name, Jared Fogle, I believe. So he can't call him by his last name. He had to call him Daddy.
What?
Yes. And if he refused to call him Daddy or refer to him as Daddy, then he would not be getting his money, because only the one who calls him Daddy gets paid. So when he would call him on the phone, it's like, hey, Daddy. Okay. And then it started to spread even more, where he started having his assistant look for child pornography things on the computer and stuff like that. And it even came to the point that it turned into bestiality, where they started trying to have sex with horses. Okay.
What?
Yes, I'm telling you, like, this was like, what? Okay.
And this is a Subway guy.
This is
like,
the Subway guy.
Oh my God, that's horrible. Like, what makes people think that it's okay to have sex with animals?
The same person that decided it was okay to drink milk from the udder of a cow and decided, hey, you know what, this is good for you. Questions. I have questions.
I got questions too, girl. I got questions. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I was taking a sip. But yeah, so he goes and he's having his assistant go around. He has his assistant going around asking people about their horses, and they had this mutual friend, and the mutual friend, rents out her horses, like for parties and things like that, because she had a horse ranch. So the assistant's like eager and asking questions about the horse and all this other extra stuff. And then the lady is a swinger with her husband, but they knew about it because they were into that type of community and stuff like that. Not the pedophilia, but the swinging, and Jared would attend those things with his assistant and stuff like that. And what ended up happening was that the assistant started asking this friend that owns the horse ranch, like, oh, have you ever been curious enough to do anything with your horse? And the lady's like, no. And he's like, what if you were to get paid to have sex with your horse? And it's just like, stop asking me about my horses. Like, what is wrong with you? And things like that. And he continued to be persistent due to the simple fact that Jared kept pushing the assistant to try to get her to say yes. But what ended up happening was that the lady got scared and called the cops. And she was like, listen, like, I think they're trying to rape my horse. But they didn't take her serious, you know? And, you know, animals don't...
Sorry, that was so funny.
No, because you know what it is, though, in all honesty, like, a lot of the animals don't get the same kind of respect that we get. Because they don't consider animals being raped unless the animal ejaculates. So if you penetrate a horse, but the horse doesn't ejaculate, they don't consider that to be bestiality or like rape towards the animal type of thing. So they don't get the same benefits. So I think they kind of laughed it off just the same way like you just did. Where it's like, what? You know, but it's also something that's weird to hear, like, hey, like they're trying to rape my horse, you know?
Yeah, that right there would have been like, what? Who could try to rape your horse? Like, did you catch her? Like, I would have
happens. No, but it does happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know it does. But.
So what ended up happening was that the only reason that they found out about Jared was because of the assistant, and it's because the police officers ended up bringing the guy in and questioning him, and he thought that they got caught for everything, you know, and so he starts like trying to defend himself. So he's spilling out his guts. He's spilling out his truths.
Oh my God.
About what's going on, when in reality they was just gonna question him about the horse raping thing. And it's because there's a lot of videos like that he started sending her as well, of like people having sex with horses, males, females, and all this other extra stuff. The males doing it to the horse, the males receiving it from the horse, like all this stuff. So they really wanted to bring him in to question him and tell him like, hey, leave the ranch lady alone, you know?
Yeah.
And instead he just like started just spilling everything out. So when that happened, they just, you know, they're not gonna say nothing. They just let him keep talking. And then that's when they ended up like going into Jared's office, and they took his laptops, they took everything that they possibly could find, and Jared kept everything on his laptop.
Oh my God. So, that's the most stupidest move you can make, right?
Well, yeah, so all the proof, all the evidence that they ever needed was right there. And it's because he thought that he was smarter. He thought that he was quicker, you know, because he was going to the Philippines, so they didn't have no records, but there was pictures of what was being done and things like that. And then when the girlfriend that he had, the radio reporter, caught wind of what was happening, she took that opportunity and ran with all the evidence that she had about all the conversations that took place, him talking about the experiences, the things that he wanted to go further on how I think he's bisexual, and it's just everything, like everything he's ever told her, she was recording the conversations. So when she caught wind that he was arrested, she was like, boom, toma, take this, and all that stuff. So, but believe it or not, when he got arrested and they charged him, they never used any of her evidence, even though it was word confessions. Like, it's him in the thing. Like, she would be like, hey, Jared. And he's just like, hey, baby. I'm making that part up. But, you know, like, he'll respond and stuff like that. So it's confirmation that it is him. And they didn't use any of her evidence. It
could be, like, I think it could be because, like, she was a scorned female and she was just trying to use it as a ploy to get him or something like that. She probably was trying to get... She was probably trying to get money off of it. You know what I'm saying? Because why would you record?
But she's a reporter. She said she was interviewed in the documentary that I saw, so we were able to see her side. We didn't see his side of the story. Okay. And she was talking about how, you know, she didn't feel right, but she knew that she had to do something about this, and that's why she kept entertaining it and recording it, because she would go to the police as well. So he has like the second wife who's now divorced from him, and her, the reporter, were both going to the police, and they did nothing about it. So she continued to record because she was like, she knew eventually he would get arrested. And when he got arrested, they didn't use the proof. And to top it all off, I don't remember if it was his second wife or it was the girlfriend that recorded everything, but they even went and they sent information to the CEO of Subway. And they told that woman, I forgot which one was it, that this had nothing to do with them. And it was proof about pedophilia, bestiality, child pornography, all of that stuff. And they sent evidence. Okay. And they did nothing about it. They literally, this is the CEO. This is just not human resources. This is not just a Subway manager at a restaurant in the corner. The CEO and the CEO himself was on some, like, it had nothing to do with him, because basically it had nothing to do with Subway. And it's just like, how could you turn a blind eye to this? So there was a lot of times that he could have gotten in trouble, and all these rapes that did take place, because it's rape. I'm sorry, a 9-year-old, he's crying and you're getting a kick out of it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like a 30-year-old who voluntarily decided to spread his cheeks. So you have this going on, and they're bringing it to the CEO, and he was just on some, like, it had nothing to do with him, and turned a blind eye. And I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But he's now in jail. It doesn't seem as if anything has changed. They were showing conversations, they were playing conversations that he was having with, like, fangirls that were writing to him and wanting to be with him and wanting to be his wife and all this other extra stuff. And he's more concerned about how big are their breasts, what do they look like, and all this other extra stuff. So his womanizing mindset has not changed at all. He wrote a letter apologizing, saying that he now realizes that his actions were wrong. Like, you didn't know they were wrong before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's things like that. But they both, him and his assistant, are in jail. Jared was sentenced to 15 years in jail, but he's already been in jail for quite a long time. I don't even remember when his release date is, but it's very soon. It's very soon. I think probably within like the next 5 years, he should be released, which then worries me,
Yeah, because like then it's like, are you gonna be coming out to society and doing the same stuff that you went in for? Like, what is this?
Exactly. And like, he's gonna be written down as a pedophile and things like that. But with the way that this world is going and the way that California is, where they're trying to sign a law stating that as long as you don't surpass 10 years of age, then you can be with a minor. So an 8-year-old can supposedly consent to sex with an 18-year-old, and it's not going to be considered rape because they said yes to it. But if it's an 8-year-old and a 19-year-old, then they can go down as pedophilia. And that has me worried because, he doesn't reside on the east side. He resides at the West Coast. And I think an 8-year-old should not have any type of consent to sex. But that's, basically a whole other topic for a whole other day, because we open up that can, I'm digging deep in it. It's going to be like the black hole. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to be more opinions and feelings than it is facts. But he resides in California. So for him to be able to be released, and California's trying to push this law where it's okay, it makes me fearful, because I think he's like 40. And even though, the cutoff age would be 30 years old for him, but what about in, the Philippines? He can still fly out over there, and he won't be considered a pedophile in a different location. It's not like if he's doing it in the US of A. So that makes me very worrisome about this man. Like, there's a lot more other people out there, but just knowing that he admitted to it, knowing that there's tapes and there's voice recordings, and he has an assistant who will be able to attest to all of it because he did confess to all of it. Like, it wasn't just him himself.
Right.
And everybody was okay with it, whoever was in his circle. That makes me worry. Because children literally are not safe nowadays, but nevertheless, to have someone with a pedophile agenda to be released, and then the law is trying to change to where it's okay.
Yeah, it's not right.
And that's all that I have regarding the Subway man. Jared Fogle, the Subway man. He went from Subway to prison. That's what I have off of the top of my head. You definitely can go to YouTube. There's like videos where you got like an hour, 2 hours long. You have the interview with the lady. Like, it's not something that is swept under the rug. I don't think it made as much noise in the news as it should have. But if you Google it, you're not going to have no issue finding any type of information. What are your thoughts on it? We're almost done, guys. But what is it?
I'm mind blown. I'm mind blown that this guy that advocated for losing weight based on a Subway sandwich turned out to be that, like, legit that. Like, he got lost along the way of his weight loss, I guess you could say, because it's like he started experimenting with things that, you know, were not okay. Animals, children, you know? And the fact that he knew that it was wrong. That's my thing. He knew that it was wrong, because why would you go all the way out of the country to do that? You knew it was wrong. You knew it was wrong. So for anybody saying that, oh, he, you know, we didn't think he was doing anything wrong, it was wrong. There's no way that someone, if it wasn't wrong, they would still be in their country doing it here. Instead, he went all the way so that he doesn't get caught. But then decided to record it out of his own pleasure.
Right.
Needs.
Right. Like,
that's what's mind blowing to me.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that's what's mind blowing to me. And it's just crazy. Like, the sexual preferences that people have, sometimes it's not right. You know, like, it's just, oh god, that's like, just something we're gonna have to talk about on a different episode, because
but we talk about everything in different episodes, so we never get to it. Like, I'm still waiting to open that topic about the mammoth. Okay, I've literally written that down. I'm waiting. I feel like we got so many episodes to talk about and we don't talk about it, and I know it's because we want to bring up these topics, but we don't want negative backlash. And I just pray that we're able to actually find mature audiences that can have conversations like this. But not everybody's lucky. So I think we're gonna have to just do it, and whoever don't like it can skip us or put a thumbs down, but it has to happen regardless.
Yeah, we do. Or don't listen, because we always announce what type of, you know, subject we're about to talk about. And
basically we're talking, so you have the choice to either eavesdrop or you could just mind your business. You know what I mean? But I know you didn't have this planned out because you were going to hear it for the first time, but do you happen to have any questions for our listeners?
I do. Okay, loves, I do have some questions for you. How do you feel about this story? What would you have done if you were his assistant? Would you also record the conversation if a friend was telling you their truths?
Ooh, those are deep questions too. I don't even know how to answer. With the amount of time we have left, I definitely would be a snitch. I'm sorry. Like, you're not gonna be raping children or horses in my presence. Like, oh, the horse, maybe I'll like knock some sense into you and pray for a different change. But a child, that's a big no for me. I'm sorry. Like, I give props.
Yeah, I give props to the horse lady. I mean, I wouldn't have rented my horse out to those weird people. You know, like, especially when they're looking at my horse like it's a snack. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not even a good snack. Like, I'm gonna cook you snack and eat you. Like, this is more so like.
If I was the assistant, I don't know what I would do, because again, the mind of the assistant did not match the body. So I don't know if his mentality was 5. I don't know if his mentality was 13. I don't know if he stood in that childlike state for when he was being molested. So I don't know how I would react to it, because maybe he didn't see anything so bad about it because it happened to him. So maybe this is normal that it's happening with Jared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I really don't know what I would do if I was him. Only because I don't know how his thought process was. But I feel bad for him. But at the same time, it's like, you're a villain, but you're also a victim.
Right.
And the story has me messed up, and I have this thing against pedophiles
Yeah.
who are now trying to call themselves MAPs, as minor attractive persons, and I don't like it. I know they're trying to change it as to it being a sexuality, something like being gay or trans, and they're trying to make it something that's acceptable, but that's something I don't think I could ever be accepting of. But
Right.
we do have to go. We're running out of time.